Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ali Thompson from Hay Legal. Thank you for joining us for the LegalTech Conference post-event live stream. We've got a lot planned for you today to run through. We've got some great guests who I'll introduce in a second. We are going to today have some initial reflections of what we thought about the event. So if you didn't know or weren't in attendance on the 25th of June this year, we had a hopefully fantastic day for everyone, some great feedback about it. We had a hybrid event taking place in Edinburgh and online, over 500 lawyers in attendance, which was absolutely brilliant. And so we're going to look at reflections on the day, some key themes, what was discussed on the day, and then we're going to look at next steps. So how do we keep the conversations going? How do we not make it that it's just a year between the events and we don't really keep chatting to each other and innovating. So I'm delighted to be joined by some great guests who are reflective of all the different roles that took place on the day. So I'm joined by Sarah Blair from Thorntons. I know that many of the audience are going to know everyone, but I will do the formal introductions. So Sarah Blair, speaker on the day and Director of Technology and Transformation at Thorntons. We're also joined by Rachel Steer, Supreme Organiser from CPD, Law Scott CPD, where Rachel's the Senior Manager there. We're also joined by one of our great hosts from the day. So we had two hosts, Danae Shell from Vala, and joining us today, Alex Tomczyk, Founder and CEO of Exizent. And finally, we have Stephen Hill, last but not least, Stephen, I hasten to add, speaker and sponsor and managing director of De Novo. So good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, Ali.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
good stuff.
thank you.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me. So we're going to start off with reflections on the day. So, Sarah, would you like to give us your thoughts? You're just thinking back, sort of a couple of weeks now. What did you make of it all?
I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I've been to a few over the years, and you did say we could be honest and frank. So, you know, some years ago, I went to a couple of events and just felt like they didn't have as much kind of enthusiasm about them. Maybe didn't have the right balance of speakers. Maybe, and I think, you know, that's to say a lot about how legal tech has evolved and the different, you know, roles and responsibilities that we're seeing in different firms. And we had a lot of that on the day as well, you know, people with different perspectives. We had young and more experienced people speaking, and it was a great mix, I think. I think I loved all the speakers. The things I probably remember and loved the most were the access to justice angle. I loved that. I loved hearing from Vala and from Rocket Lawyer. One of the figures that stood out to me that Christina Blacklaw shared was only 7% of a really burgeoning legal tech sector is B2C. And that's quite sad in that, you know, it doesn't look like that access to justice gap is being addressed by technology as much as it should. So I loved that session. And I thought Lindsay was an amazing, enthusiastic end to the day. And I loved some of the insights. It felt like she was really honest and you know, told her own story really well, and it was a fantastic end to the day as well. The only thing I would say is the balance between online and in person makes it quite difficult to do some of the things I think would have worked really well on the day. Our design thinking session, we would have loved to have done it interactively with the post-it notes and actually got people to do some activities as part of it, but having it hybrid made that a bit of a challenge. So maybe next year we'll think about splitting some of the content so it can be online, but if you're in there, you get some bonus. Because obviously it's nice to have people in the room as well. And I don't know what the balance was, but it felt like there's probably more online than there was actually in the room on the day. So that's my thought.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you for such a good summary of everything. And yeah, absolutely. I think you know, there is a challenge around the hybrid event. Clearly, I think we had about 250 or so online at certain points, and trying to run interactive workshops becomes tricky in that environment, obviously. Yeah. But I have to say, personally, the design thinking session I thought was great. It was really enjoyable, and I think there's no doubt think there is a strong desire to have more interactive elements to the day as well, rather than people just being, kind of broadcast that. But great. Well, thank you very much for that, Sarah. Rachel.
Yeah. Thanks, Ali. Yeah, so ours is a bit of a unique experience, I suppose, because our event kind of starts 6 months before the event actually takes place. So we start by sitting down with yourself, Ali, and sort of mapping out how we'd like the conference to look like, what we think it should take shape. So we kind of look at the trends that are going on in the tech industry over the past 12 months or so. We look at feedback from previous delegates, and then I think most importantly is that we reach out to members to gather their thoughts on what they want to see. So yeah, starts very early. On the day, the actual event is obviously very satisfying because you can kind of witness the fruits of your labour in real time, a lot of which being background work, obviously, which goes unnoticed, but makes up a big proportion of the planning. So I think once that initial fear of is anyone actually going to show up is over, then you can kind of start to enjoy the day, which we did. People did show up and it was a great success. So after that's over, we can kind of enjoy ourselves. So yeah, it was lovely to see so many people online. Ali, I think you're right. I think we averaged at around 250 throughout the day. I think in person, I think we were around about the 100, 120 mark, perhaps. So there was a good buzz in the room in Dynamic Earth on the day, and that's always my favourite part, which we don't get to do as frequently post-COVID. So it's lovely linking up with people like yourselves who you've created this sort of online relationship with and getting to meet them in person and kind of breaking that inherently awkward Zoom/Teams relationship that you get into. So that's always a highlight for me, is kind of putting faces to names. And then, yeah, as usual, always great to catch up with sponsors and exhibitors and kind of get a wee insight into what's going on in their world. So yeah, that was kind of my experience in the run up and then on the day as well.
Yeah. I bet you had a well-deserved drink afterwards, Rachel.
We did. There were a few drinks consumed, weren't there, Ali?
It's important to decompress after these events.
It's networking.
Yes, and digest what's going on. But yeah, it did feel a bit. Yeah, it was one of those things of there's a million different moving parts to these events, and things obviously. I'm not saying spiral out of control. That wouldn't be right. But there's last minute events and happenings. So yeah, it was great on the day. It's all a bit of a blur, like going to a wedding or something. It all happens very quickly, and suddenly it's finished. But no, it was great, and I think the community vibe around it is something we're obviously very keen to try to build out. And obviously planning going forward for more in-person elements as well really does help foster all of that. Although still at the same time, I think catering for people who are around the country and can't necessarily always make it to Edinburgh for 9 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah.
So thank you, Rachel. That great summary. Thank you very much. Now, Alex, one of our hosts.
Yeah. Thanks, Ali. Yeah. No, I mean, I thought it was a really good day. Obviously, co-chairing it with Danae I've done quite a few conference chairing things in the past, although really pre-COVID, I realised, so probably a little bit rusty. But it was the first time I've done one sort of co-chairing like that, and I thought it worked really well actually. Danae and I get on well, and we did a bit of prep together, and it seemed to work. So I thought that was an interesting piece. In terms of the event itself, I thought it was a great amount of energy if I compare to previous events, and indeed law tech events elsewhere or legal tech events elsewhere. I thought there was good energy in the room. I thought the balance of people both in the room and online was interesting in terms of the different stakeholder groups involved, and who was there, and also the profiles. I think if I would, a lot of the people, certainly the people, that I saw were a lot of them were people involved in legal tech or from mid to large size firms. Mm-hmm. And I think that from Sarah's the vice chair, but we're both on the Law Scott Tech Advisory Board. And I think from that board perspective, my view would be we need to find ways of engaging the smaller and and mid-sized firms in legal tech in general, not in this conference, Rachel, don't worry about that too much, because actually only certain people will come physically or online. But we need to find a way from a legal tech perspective of ensuring that very large swathe of stakeholders in the legal system and technology are involved, and also from other CTSs and people like that, other parts of the legal system. I think it'd be nice to see more of those people either involved or engaged with the legal tech space as well, but also perhaps with this event. In terms of content, I thought the speakers were really good. I thought the balance of sessions were really good. There was a bit of a juggle when you were chairing to Ali, and you experienced this as well, to know where the next question was coming from. Was it going to be online? Was it going to be on Zoom? Was it going to be via Slido? But it kind of all worked itself out. And I think that there's ways even to maybe tackle, Sarah, your point about doing interactive stuff, perhaps using the use of Miro or something like that for future events. Because I do feel that the digital component is valuable, because we've got a wide group of people to engage. So I think there's perhaps things we can do about that. I thought some of Christina's, I agree your comments here. Christina's keynote was really, really interesting. Some of the things that are going on in the world, and some of the bigger outside Scotland influences on the legal system and indeed on legal tech are really, really important, and we need to bring those both in terms of the content and in terms of attendees. So I thought that was really good. And there were just some really excellent speakers who are experts in their space. And I don't know if you remember, but I toddled off at one point. There was one point where we had a parallel stream, and I toddled off to a room where the conversation was about digital identity and digital signatures, and that was a really good session. I mean, the Richard Oliphant, who I subsequently I'd never met before, it was a fireside chat style, and he was the sort of person being talked to. He really is one of the global leaders in digital signature and identity, and it was just fascinating to hear that conversation. And I've had another conversation with him because he's doing some work in relation to digital signatures, potential digital signatures for wills as well, which is quite fascinating. In many ways, Scotland is further ahead than England and Wales and other parts of the world with digital signatures, but there's lots more that's coming over the next few years. So there were some really great speakers, and I'd love to see that kind of caliber of speaker across the various different domains. There's lots of good people out there, and I think that bringing that broader perspective to us in Scotland, I think is something that we should continue to do. But no, I thought it was a good event, real step up, I think, from last year as well. But anyone who's ever worked with me will know that I'm terrible at celebrating success, and I'm always like, right, what's next? What's the next thing we can improve? Where's the next thing to get better? So I have loads of ideas for that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, that's brilliant, Alex. I mean, I was on that latter point you made here. I was very impressed with your notes the following day or so, with ideas to take things forward.
Already on it, wasn't he? Yeah.
Already, yeah, which is absolutely brilliant. It's what we want, and I think the point in particular, I'm sure we'll return to that, about the smaller firms being involved and not just seeing it as a large firm area with an innovation team and resource and all of that, but actually see this as a place where every law firm can happily join in, feel as though there's something there for them, and get some practical takeaways that they can implement in their practice quickly, I think, rather than it being all philosophical or theoretical around how they can take tech forward. So brilliant, thank you for that, Alex. Stephen, you were both a speaker, a sponsor, an attendee. So all those different perspectives. So how was it for you?
Yeah, I've got coming at it from a few different angles. What was interesting, obviously, as an exhibitor, we've been there for a couple of years now, so it felt like, certainly for the people in person, the exhibitor space felt like the same size of area, but it felt busier. I felt to be more vendors there, so it was really interesting to hear what everyone's working on, because obviously you've got competition there, you've got people that are doing products that are similar to yours, but also ones that can complement. Some of our integration partners were there as well. So it's always good to kind of catch up with those at that types of event, because you've got that visibility of what they're working on and what they're what their next kind of strategy is as well. So you get to take away from that. And I felt the exhibitor space, although it was the same size, etc., it was busier. So I think there felt like more people in person, and that just creates a kind of general buzz about it. And then obviously the room is a bit further away, so it's down 2 sets of stairs. So upstairs was very hot, downstairs was pretty cold in terms of the ambient temperature, which I thought was interesting, because when you were down talking, you felt as if you might need a wee fleece, but then upstairs it was really hot. So that was good, because you got that kind of break of.
I thought it was just my temperature gauge that was broken, but yeah, I'm glad that was experienced by others.
Definitely different atmospheres going on. The aircon was very good downstairs compared to upstairs. Then as a speaker, it was great, because as an exhibitor and sponsoring, getting to speak, you kind of get carte blanche to say what you like, if you know what I mean. So there's always a theme and a topic. So Ali will kind of come and say, like, what can I talk about this, because that fits in with the agenda. But other than that, you can kind of derive on what your own theme can be based on what you've been doing here in the last 12 months or what you're looking to achieve going forward. So anyone that's looking to be involved in that, then I think there's a good angle there and a good opportunity to discuss what you want to discuss within obviously reason. And then just from the other speakers in general, it's always really interesting to hear things like the next gen of lawyers as well, considering how they're going to bring the technology through. They're very good at adopting technology, as we know, with everything that's going on in outside legal software as well. They can, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old can pick up an iPad and be swiping away and doing things that you can't do. So that next gen part is very crucial. And as I was saying, like, I'd use the kind of football analogy throughout the talk as well, but we're looking to see how can those trainees develop, and what they're developing into, what kind of software roles are they going to be able to achieve as things accelerate forward as well. So a good mixture of different themes throughout the day as well, because as you said, like, we want more people involved. We want as many from the small, medium firms coming along as well, finding out this is probably one of their only opportunities to see what is happening in the legal landscape, other than being sent emails from different vendors and things like that. So being able to hear what people are doing is always crucial for how they can move their own software forward as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stephen. Yeah, I thought the next generation lawyers, the young lawyers, whatever, I can't recall the exact title now, but I thought they were great. I mean, it's difficult early part of your career, to come in and speak at an in-person event like that, and to do it as well as they did. Was fantastic, and great insight into the different roles and the different percentages of time that they could allocate to. I just didn't have any knowledge around that, and it was really.
I think as well, on that note, Ali, hearing from a variety of what might have felt like bigger firms, because they were all from, there was one from Thornton's, Brodie's, Harper McLeod, and Shepwed, and you think, well, these are the bigger firms, but to hear that they've not got armies of innovation people even in Scotland, I think is reassuring, to all of us, but especially hopefully to the smaller firms, thinking, well, we've just not got the resources, we've not got the reach to be able to achieve what they can, but actually, there's only one of them in a lot of cases. They're not spending a huge amount of their time on innovation, but they were able to articulate what they've achieved, and they gave examples, which I thought was fantastic. If people are looking for where they might be able to start, there were some great examples given on, things like, I think one of the examples that really resonated with me was the lady from Brodie's, I think it was, said she just went out and she just knew that had to be a better way of doing court bundles. So she just explored some of the different software applications and found one that saved her huge amounts of time. And it's like, it's not all about Gen AI, it's about the use cases. So that was a fantastic example of innovation in action, no AI needed, but just using technology to do something more efficiently. So I loved that session. I thought it was great. They had some great slides that were AI created about how lawyers looked in the past, the present, and the future. There was the past one was quite 70s looking, but quite depressingly, I remembered it was quite accurate as well. It's like that when I started out in legal. So
That's right. It was like the Miami Vice suits or something. I think in the 80s, kind of the big
It
baggy
was.
suits. and
We
whatever.
should put that. We
Um,
should definitely make sure that's on the website in terms of the blog of the session. It was one of my highlights.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was great in that wider point of, just these are conversations that people don't often have, across firms. Firms have got their own silos, but there's so much to learn from talking to peers about just, what their reality is. And it was a great session, that one, absolutely. And thank you
I think
to.
I think that's also a really interesting point about the attendees of the day, and I could totally agree. I thought it was a really good session, and we hear people coming along and talking like that. You realise that the future of the profession is in some pretty good and potentially really quite exciting times. But I think that there's another piece in there in terms of the adoption of legal technology that we need to have a think about, and again. From a LegalTech perspective, we need to have a think about, because that example of a different way of doing court bundles and going away and doing it is because she was given the opportunity to go and do that, or just took the initiative to go and do it herself, which is fantastic. Well, not every firm has someone who's at the time or resources or necessarily given the freedom to go and do that. And I think that there's a really interesting piece in that those people were all from small to medium-sized firms and I would say that was probably true in the room. Sorry, medium-sized firms, but I think if you look more broadly at the legal tech space, that's a pattern that we see repeating all over, not just in Scotland, but all over the UK, certainly. You see huge amounts of investment going into the buzz things, Gen AI and stuff like, or reported investment. But actually, when you dig into the numbers, not a lot of that is actually turning into really tangible things on the ground yet. And actually, what people need is particularly in small to mid-sized firms, they're going to need some of these tools actually deployed within products like Stevens or ours because actually that's where the real benefits will ultimately be. And everyone talks about Gen AI, and it's been useful because it's got everyone talking about it, talking about technology. But quite frankly, there's a hell of a lot of other technology out there before you get to Gen AI. That even if you want to talk about AI, there's predictive AI models and all that sort of stuff there that can be deployed now and they can be used now that are going to be more valuable. But you need to find a way of talking about. I'm also on the board of FinTech Scotland, and I went to an event about adopting AI in the financial services industry, and there was a super presentation from the person that leads on it in Tesco Bank, talking about the model that they've adopted for encouraging people in the organisation to experiment with technology, experiment with AI, but putting a governance framework around it so that it's all compliant and it's those kinds of initiatives that are quite interesting. And I think just the other side of the people that make decisions in firms are not the people that were at that conference in broadly. I mean, Sarah, you're probably a bit of an exception in that respect, but
An anomaly.
Yeah, it's. I think, but I do think there's a real piece, and this is another maybe a LegalTech thing, Sarah. Is for us to be having conversations with the decision makers, the managing partners, the heads of, to enable those more innovative projects to get off the ground and tested and discarded if they don't work, because experimentation is also
part of it,
really key, but trying to fail quickly so that people understand that there's valuable learning from stuff. So I think there's a piece there about engaging with the decision makers, but also about being realistic about legal tech adoption. Some will work and
that was a great one of the big themes of the day for me was about the reality of Gen AI, and I think John Krask summed it up beautifully with one of his AI musings. He had a slide of AI musings. They were all absolutely brilliant, and he said, just because it can't do everything doesn't mean it can't do anything. It's the worst AI is ever going to be. It's all about use cases. But the one bit I really loved was, don't believe the hype, use the hype. And that's exactly, I love that, because it's very grounded in the it's almost like we're repeating the hype curve that we saw a few years ago about AI and legal, and then it kind of hit the trough, and then we saw just a few really good use cases for these Kira tools and things like that. And actually, my firm, we're a big firm, but we don't use that much AI. We use it for very small use cases. And I think Gen AI is going to have wider application, but we're going through that hype cycle. And I think Damien at Brody's talked brilliantly about that. You know, we all get so excited about it, and then because the hype is so high, the fall into the trough of disillusionment on the Gartner curve is so big that everybody just writes it off then and says, and that's one of the biggest dangers that we've got, is that the hype is at such a high level at the moment. There's lots of cynicism about it. There's lots and lots of big PR machines going on about it. But actually, you know, use that hype, but get experimenting, because actually the tech is coming. John also said that the tech is coming. We can't control the tech. It's going to come. It's actually steaming towards us. But what we can control is finding the use cases, getting on the bus, experimenting with it, getting people educated, thinking about the culture and the business model now so that we can get ahead of that. And that's everybody. That's not just the big firms, the mid-sized firms. Copilot's £25 per user per month. Microsoft Copilot's a generic tool, and it can already do some amazing things if you try it out on different things. Some things it's a bit naff at, but some things it can do really well. During this session, I'll have 100 emails in my inbox, and I can go back and say, Copilot, tell me what I should do urgently from these emails. And it will give me a bit of a summary and say, you really need to get back to your boss because he's been asking you about this while you've been in that live stream. And it's those little things that are going to save time. And I think, you know, we're going to see that impact the smaller firms, and they can actually make better use of the impact by, you know, not having the big bureaucracy that we've got, not having the same decision cycles that we've got, but just trying it out and seeing how they get on. So I'm not sure which theme I talked about there, probably all of them.
I think there's an interesting thing to pick up there, because you picked up on a stat earlier there. Sorry, Ali, I know I've jumped in again, but I'll promise I'll keep quiet for a minute in a second. But you picked up on, Sarah, on Christina's stat about 7% of legal tech being B2C facing. I didn't, as chair, I didn't want to interrupt to challenge that stat, but I think we all, I mean, the session on purpose-led legal techs, I think is quite important, and we're very clear on our purpose, which is to improve the experience of bereavement for everyone involved, but that doesn't mean we need to have a B2C facing product. Now we will have that in expanding in the future, but the other legal technology that enables law firms to do more work, service more customers, to generate more on their top line, that is also about access to legal advice and access to service and access to justice. It just might not necessarily be delivered in a B2C format, but if you have one lawyer that's now able to do 10 cases instead of 5 because of the use of AI and using, well, that's another 5 people who are getting a service at a sensible price and getting access in a way. There's all the innovative models like Valor have as well, which is a sort of lawyer-guided process, which definitely changes the access point for that particular employment law in that case. But there's also a bunch of other stuff that Stephen will be doing, that other firms will be doing, which enables law firms to do more, and that, you know, Microsoft will definitely be doing, but other AI vendors are available too, and that can manage that sort of stuff. So I don't disagree with Christina's statistic, because it's obviously based on research analysis, but I think it's a little too simplistic.
I agree, but I do think it's going to take time for technology like that to impact the business model in a way that will actually, you know, open up the unmet needs that we've got. So I think that, you know, that is the future, but I think that unmet need is not being served directly by many of these technology solutions. And I think it's when you hear stories like Valor that you think that is, you know, for me, it's really reassuring, because I'm thinking, well, actually, they're not stealing our lunch. You know, they're actually something we can work with. We should be working alongside. And actually, isn't that fantastic? Because, you know, it's not the type of work that we generally do, but actually that is then unmet by people at Thornton. So I love that story. I do think there's been a pivot of a lot of technologies where actually it's been easier to look at the backstage story than it has been to try and sort the consumer market's a really tricky one anyway. So, but there's some, and you know, I think that tech for good story, you've got people like Amicus who don't just look at that niche part, and Exident is the same story, not just looking at that niche part, but actually looking at the whole picture. And the word we've used it a few times, community, is so important. I think, you know, we've got to take what we've been working on and foster that community now, and look at the whole member base, the stakeholders that are going to really help make a difference, like, as you say, Alex, the SCTS and the registers and people like that, who all have a really important role in that. And look at how we can all work together and join the dots on so much that's going on already in silos to some extent.
Yeah, brilliant, Sarah. Thank you. Rachel and Stephen, just some key thoughts, key themes that you saw on the day.
I think one of the key themes throughout the day was human input in things, that the AI is not going to replace humans. Human input is going to be very valuable, very pivotal in how the technology is used. You're going to have to do a lot of still data input. You're going to have to put the right data, ask the right questions of your data to get the right answers out of it as well. So the legal part of it, you still need to be a good lawyer. Your role at the AI is not going to replace you as the human person working on the case. It's a bit like comparing it to like driving a vehicle with autonomous driving. Take Tesla, for example. There are others available. It does what it does. It auto navigates. It's got AI built in. It drives you in the right. It drives you in the right direction, but you have to be at the wheel in case it goes wrong, because otherwise it will crash, or your car will crash. So sometimes it just falls over and just doesn't know what decision to make. So the human has to make the decision. And I think one of the key takeaways as well from the cyber talk that Mythical did as well is humans are probably the most dangerous part of the law firm as well, in terms of somebody trying to breach your security and get in, because humans click on things that they're not meant to click on, and there's things have happened. We've all had stories within firms where you've clicked on something or entered the password, and before you know it, it's chaos can ensue, and there's massive fallout from that. So humans, good and bad, will play a huge part in.
That's a great juxtaposition, isn't it? Because there was lots of talk of human in the loop and augmented lawyering. But as you say, when it came to the cyber side, it was like, well, the humans in the loop are the riskiest bits.
Absolutely. I found that fascinating. It's so true as well. It's one of the biggest fears of law firms, and lender panels and cyber insurance providers are all asking lots and lots of questions about penetration testing and all that kind of stuff. So it's all very fundamental. It's all things everyone's going to have to come accustomed to, and making sure that the systems are secure as well.
Mm-hmm. I think.
Sorry, Rachel, you go.
No, I was just going to touch on that. I think I've taken, now that we've had a sort of couple of weeks to reflect on it, and I think that people-centered point that you make is really important, Stephen, and something that I took from the conference that maybe wasn't outwardly said is potentially even from a sort of selfish point of view, and that well-being aspect that tech can improve. And I think from my point of view, because I'm not a person who's maybe more naturally tech inclined, and I don't know if I get kicked off the stream for saying that, but I wouldn't naturally look for tech solutions. I'm more of a people-centered focus. If there was a problem within my team, I'd think, well, resource and people, and I wouldn't naturally go to, oh, well, is there a tech solution for that? So something that I would take from it, and as I say, it maybe wasn't outwardly said, is how it's not only, this is how you can benefit from embracing tech, and this is how your firm can benefit from embracing tech and the business imperatives of that. It's really just, no, this is really how it can benefit you. And that might be work-life balance, that might be an improve on well-being, mental health, etc., etc. So I think that's really how tech can resonate for people like me who don't really naturally come to those tech solutions. So that was something that I took from it as well, but maybe just from a slightly different angle, and that's speaking as someone who is not a tech expert, and I'd be the first person to say that. But that's really something that would lure me in almost, as no, this is going to improve my life, this is going to make my life easier, and it doesn't need to completely reinvent the wheel. And Sarah, you'd said that just because it can't do everything it can do, or just because it can't do anything.
Yeah. It's a really good quote. Yeah,
that's really
so don't write it off just because it can't do everything, or some things you give it doesn't do as well, because what it
but-
can do well, it can do better than you can in some cases.
Yeah.
But it's those use cases that are hugely important.
Yeah, exactly. If it can give me back an hour from a day that you can spend on something else, whether that's time with family, whether that's something else that really does need that person behind it, then that would always be my motivation, I'd say. But maybe that's very selfish of me.
I love that. I love that take on it. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. And I think on the session that we did on, is labeled design thinking, but actually it's just a way of putting a human-centered approach at the forefront of this, and not leading with technology. Technology is not always the solution, but actually thinking about people and their experiences, and the different people in any process, in any transaction, is what design thinking and, well, service design I use. That's what it's all about. It's and so often we'll come at it and we'll say, actually, there's a people solution to this, or there's a process solution to this, and then we'll quite often we'll say, well, there is a technology solution to this, but it's not always about the tech. And I think with Gen AI, those use cases and where it can do things well are going to be so important to find. But to do that, engagement's going to be the most important thing. I've just been working this week with our working group around Gen AI and looking, it's not going to be the tech and demoing the tech that's going to get it in to make a difference at the firm. It's them using it, trying it, identifying those use cases, and where it can make their life easier, give them time back, allow them to do transactions at a better cost for the client. It's engagement, I think, is the biggest focus we need to have with. It's not about tech, it's about people and engagement.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know it's a great piece there, Rachel. Because I mean, the reality is that particularly the sort of private client space where we work, why do lawyers come into that space? And the answer to that often is they come into that because they want to help people. They want to help them with the problems that they have, and they want to help them. And actually, to your point, Rachel, I mean that tech can help achieve those things, because actually it enables you to do more of the things you want, hopefully, and less of the stuff that is boring and repetitive. But it's also you also make a really good point. Just a really good reminder. It shouldn't be a pushing of technology to the whole legal system to try. It should be right. Well, these are the benefits of doing this. These are the problems. Sarah, back to design thinking. These are the problems that we're trying to solve. These are the various ways in which we should be trying to do it. And if it is, the answer is software. Well, it's a highly usable software application designed for you. It's intuitive to use, that makes it easy to adopt to solve the problems. It shouldn't be coming into the conversation from the perspective of, right, well, you really should be adopting technology. And that's not, but it's like, have a look at this. It's really quite cool. This might help you do your job and help you do more of what you want. And by the way, a lot of thought has gone into the way, and we've seen that this can be adopted in this way by previous experience of this. What works really, really well. Do you want to give it a go? That's the kind of approach. It's incumbent on technology suppliers like us and De Novo and others to make it as easy as possible for the benefits to be realized by both the individuals and the firms that actually make the buying decisions, because that's kind of what we're here for, is to make the job easier, which ultimately benefits the whole legal system and the individuals that are the clients, citizens that are and whether they be individuals or companies that are the customers of legal services.
Brilliant. Well, Alex, thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rachel. That was great. We've covered big theme, obviously, is human plus machine, and the importance of the people in the mix. And that's not going to change that balance at all. So all good there. Now, I'm conscious of time. We really only have 5 minutes left. Although I did say we could live stream for 5+ hours more if you want. We can stay on all afternoon, but I appreciate you've got other things to be doing. So keeping the final part, keeping the conversations going. So we've got a start, we've got community, we've got interest. We're looking to drive that across the whole profession as best we can. So what, rather than having a gap between the tech conference and the tech conference 12 months later, what can we do in between? So there's Law Scott Tech, and Sarah, you can maybe tell us a bit about that, please, and Alex, obviously. And then there's the Hey Legal Hub Tech Community and the Law Society Legal Technology Certification course. So Sarah, do you want to start with Alex with LegalTech?
Yeah, well, I on the day I was manning our almost stand for LegalTech and just talking to people about what it is. We've got a new board that formed last year. We've got a bigger board, but actually we've got some. Alex talked about amazing expertise and minds. We've got some really fantastic people on the board now. I'm delighted to see, and we've come up with kind of just a bit of a revamp of some of the aims that we wanted to do. And that was based on an interactive workshop that we had last year, just looking at what we'd done, what we'd accomplished, what we wanted to do and what was still important or what was newly important. But now we're looking for a bit of engagement on that. So I was there with my post-it notes, just trying to get some people to give us feedback on those themes and help us form what we need to do in terms of an action plan. And that's the next step for us, is actually starting to form around these kind of 4 themes, some actions that we can take forward. And we want as much input as possible. So we'll put a communication out about how people can digitally feed into that, as well as the post-it notes I had on the day. But I do think it's going to be really important that 2 of the biggest themes are about engagement and education. So we're definitely going to be doing a lot in terms of trying to bring the community together in different ways. So we've been talking about, can we have, this was my idea, so take it with a pinch of salt, but just an event where we bring all the community tech members together with everybody that wants to come along and meet them in person or online. And we have like a speed dating event. So you can just actually hear about, we've got some amazing tech companies in Scotland and on the community. And I didn't know about half of them. I was speaking to a company in the last few weeks called Wordsmith AI, are doing some amazing stuff, and they're based in Leith. And I'd never met Ross before, and so we're having a chat with him now about what kind of work they're doing. But bringing that community together just to say, join the dots, here's the people you need to talk to, here's what they're offering. It's not about tech, but they might have something that will help you in and make your life easier. We're definitely going to do some education stuff around Gen AI, but again, with a big healthy dose of realism, just so people can understand what is actually going on at the moment and how they can actually get involved and things they can be doing right now to start thinking about that. And in terms of engagement, we're thinking about some other events that we can do. So we definitely want to get people involved. We definitely want to maybe focus on some stakeholder relevant sessions. So we talked about the smaller firms. Maybe we can actually go out and have, I think the Law Society have done this before. I've spoken at a few where it really is based on, high street, smaller firms and the problems that they're having, and taking the discussion to them. So definitely some more around that. Alex, I'll hand over to you to talk a bit more about what else we might do.
Yeah, I mean, Ross, you've covered it. You've covered a lot of it, Sarah. I mean, I think we're looking for feedback, aren't we? We're looking for feedback on the strategic plan for the next 4 years has been published. We're looking for feedback on that plan from anyone who would like to feedback. And we've got 4 key themes of areas to work on. So the challenge is everyone's got busy day jobs, quite frankly. So actually making progress is going to be probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And many hands make light work. There was a couple of people came up to me and actually said, I'd love to get involved. And I said, well, we've got these working groups. So actually, if you'd like to join a working group, the more people we have on the group, the less there'll be for each person to do. And the more diverse thinking we've got then in terms of what those groups can do. And I think that'll be the difference, Alex, having those groups actually focusing on a smaller action plan hopefully will mean that we can engage and actually start to deliver some things that are useful. We've got loads of ideas and loads of enthusiasm at the moment, though, I would say. And just to note on the, Ali, you mentioned the tech course, the Hey Legal tech course. The other one that we mentioned at the event was the Legal Service Innovation course, which Nathan, who was on my session to do with design thinking, has designed with a group of students. It's completely free. You just look up legalserviceinnovation.com, and there are some amazing speakers there. So that's another resource if people are interested that they can look at and they can use to get involved. But again, it's not about tech. There's some stuff in there about education. It's more about mindset and adoption and barriers and ways that you can engage and get people engaged in any firm.
Fantastic. Lots of opportunities and conversations to be had. So thank you for that. Rachel and Stephen, just next steps. Maybe you want to talk about the course, Rachel, or
Yeah. So obviously we've got the Society and Hey Legal's tech course, which is obviously a learning opportunity. But I think the beauty of that as well is getting the chance to meet and sort of knowledge share with interested people on the course. I mean, they obviously are interested in tech if they've decided to join, and that can be from the sort of sole practitioners, your bigger firms, and everyone in between. So I think that's a big benefit of the course, particularly maybe for the smaller firms who are not sure exactly where they lie in this marketplace. So I think a big benefit for them is getting a bit of a nosy to see what these firms are doing. Is there anything that you can take from it, whether you want to scale that down, you can scale it up slightly, and really just, I think, doing what works for you and works for your firm. And I think another good point of the course isn't about we'll all come in and discuss tech solutions that are thousands and thousands of pounds. It's not about that. It's about investing some time more into your tech. And as I say, just experimenting with what works for yourself. It's not saying that you need to go out and buy the best software and invest thousands and thousands of pounds. It's really just about, right, it maybe there perhaps are some elements of it that will cost you money, but really it's just an investment of time to sit down, think about your gripes, think about the things that you're doing that potentially could be done by a platform or a system to free up your time. So yeah, I think that real sort of experimentation process is a big part of the course, and that might be something as simple as Sarah, what you were talking about, Microsoft Pilot and scheduling help and all that sort of thing. And if you can start small like that and just kind of get one foot in the door, so to speak, then that could open up a whole new bunch of opportunities. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that. I know that those who have joined or did join, the conference are getting a pretty substantial discount on the next running of the course. So please do make use of that and email us at cpd@lawscot.org.uk to claim that discount. It'd be really nice to see you on that course. And then Ali, I know that you've said that you've got the Hey LegalTech community, which is growing more and more every day. So you're creating sort of a range of experience within that community. So really encourage you to sign up for that as well.
Yeah, and I think
Rachel, thanks, Stephen.
Having been involved in the course as well the last couple of years, just on one of the sessions as a kind of speaker, and it's a really interesting perspective, and it's a really good mix audience as well. It's not everyone from large firms. It's mainly actually small and medium firms that are there to find out about how better they can use what they've already got as well, in terms of they might already have the software solution, they're just not using it properly or just not using all of it, and finding out from others on the course about how they can take that forward has actually, I think, been quite an interesting development. So yeah, I think anyone that's not aware of it, then certainly go and check it out. It's something that I think any lawyer would actually benefit from, and it's not a huge commitment in terms of time as well. I think is it 6 or 8 sessions, Ali? It's not. I think it's six sessions, like 6 sessions, and it's not a huge time commitment, and you will learn something from it. You get not just an expert host, but also some interesting folk along the way as well.
I'd like to know who the expert host is, but no, thanks for that. So we basically have on the course, we have the next cohort starts in August 22nd or so, I think it is. So people can sign up for that just now. Over 6 weeks, and I mean we've run the course twice now. It's been a brilliant aspect of it that there's been as much gain from the peer-to-peer conversations across firms, people just knowledge sharing their war stories. There was a line used in it, your problem is not unique. So people just actually getting a chance, because we operate in silos, we operate in firms, a bit like the young lawyers talk. There was an opportunity for them to share across different environments of what they actually did. And that's been a catalyst around the creation of the Hey Legal Hub tech community, where we say on a daily basis, what ideally going forward, what would be fantastic to happen would be that people just go in and post a question and say, I don't know this, or has anyone done this, or can anyone help me with whatever it might be? Because I think there's a real power around community. We're obviously trying to develop that here and are doing so in terms of general tech. But I think I've worked on this platform myself and I've been helped by people on it, and it really is quite a moment when somebody does something and takes 5 minutes to give you some insight and tells you what worked for them and what really didn't work for them. So that's the hope. So we'll put a link into the description on YouTube and other different channels that people could sign up and participate. It's all free, and just take part in the conversations. I think that's one of the ways in which we are continuing to have the different steps, the different engagement levels throughout the year, rather than just maybe waiting for the conference. But it really strikes me as we have this conversation here, and thank you all so much for taking part. There's so much going on. There's so much need. There's still so much uncertainty in the profession around what to do, and a feeling of angst around some elements, and not really, having a practical roadmap to try to make difference. But conversations are going to help all of that. Resources are going to help all of that. And I think, hopefully the stuff that we've covered today and the opportunities that are now out there are going to assist this march towards hopefully Scotland having one of the most progressive armies of technology-enabled lawyers in the world. Why not? I mean, it's just a case of building a narrative around it and getting people on board. And then if that happens, we're going to have better run firms, more well-being and happier clients, fundamentally. And if we achieve all of that and greater access to justice, then where's the downside? So, so it all sounds fantastic. So I'm conscious, Alex, that I have you throughout the day in the conference brought all of the timings together beautifully, and we were always on time. And I've been tasked with one live stream, 45 minutes, and here we are, 5 to 2, virtually. So on that note, I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy days. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to you, obviously, for taking the time to engage with us. I'm hoping it's the start of more conversations. We could do more of this type of thing going forward, maybe on specific topics and the like. Thanks to the Law Society, obviously, for running the course and inviting He Legal to be part of the conference. Thanks to all the sponsors, obviously, that took part there as well. Really crucial to make it a free event in the way that it is. Hopefully details will be coming out soon for the next conference date, and be able to start signing up, get on the wait list, or whatever it would be. We need to put some incentive in there for you to sign up early. But it's all been fantastic. So thank you all very much. I'll just play a video at the end, because I actually don't have a countdown timer in the other way that I did at the start. So I'll play one of the sponsors' videos, and thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ali.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.